All right, guys, what's up? I am doing. Do I have one more? We're gonna do French vanilla because I feel like French vanilla. We are. I'm gonna go shopping this week, hopefully. So I should have more French vanilla by the time my mom comes back. Today, we're shirtless again. I haven't done a shirtless one in a long time. Don't worry, I'm wearing pants. I'm not completely naked, but there's a specific reason. Last time I was kind of just trolling. I thought it would be funny, but this time there's a specific reason. So I've been doing the I have a demon in my blank series, and that sounds very awkward the way I said it now. But uh, the next one is I've been going through the order that I kind of been discovering and fighting them. And the next one is I have a demon in my legs. And actually, this was the point where I started to realize it wasn't just one, but many, many demons. And for anyone that hasn't seen the previous videos, what we're talking about here is the modern, widely socially accepted version of demons, where it is invasive thoughts in your head, negative actions that don't benefit yourself or anyone, that you really can't explain why they did them and why you did them. And whether or not these are related to biblical or mythical demons or the same thing is functionally irrelevant for this conversation. I don't really want people to get lost in that aspect. For my personal belief, yes, I think it's the same thing, but I want you to understand I'm approaching this as a scientist, someone who has studied human behavior and learned biology throughout high school and as a firefighter and EMT. So, what I've seen is there are some things that science just can't really explain very well. And as much as I try to find scientific explanations for them, I find that they often fall flat, or I will chase down the scientific explanation and find nothing, or find that it's actually disproven. So let me get a sipper real quick. We're sitting down for this one. What I want to talk about here is again more of like the physical manifestations of these of this stress and negative thoughts. And it's really weird once you learn to detect this negative energy in your body. I found that for me, I don't know if it's the same for everyone, it primarily manifests in three ways. One, I guess four. One is just pain, right? Like neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain. For me, it's almost always just stress. It's very rare that I have any actual back pain. The last time I had real back pain was when I helped one of my good friends lift a like 600-pound Jesus statue out of his truck into his yard. Jesus fucked my back good. But I was fine after a day or two. We probably should have used like straps or something, but it was three men, so you know how we can be. We're like, nah, we got it. But most of the pain I feel is the result of stress, these negative, invasive thoughts. The second thing, it's muscle tension, specifically like a clump of muscles. And often all these four things will manifest at the same spot. Uh, to be honest, I only remember three of them right now, so I don't know if I'll remember all four. But let me see if the coffee will help. Still waking up. So we've got pain, we've got muscle tension, and the interesting thing. Oh, I remember the fourth one now. The fourth one is the weirdest one for me. The interesting thing about the muscle tension is it moves, right? When you put pressure on it or stretch, uh, by the way, stretching and working out is one of the best things you can do to fight these demons. As soon as I finish this coffee, I'm gonna do some stretches, some push ups, some curls, and then I'll go stream afterwards. But I do want to start streaming my workouts again, but it's one of those things where it just takes so long to do everything when you're streaming. It takes 3 to 4 times as long to do something when you stream it. So right now, I'm just working on getting back into a habit of working out. So before I stream, we start the push ups and sit ups, and stretching is the most important. Even if you're not lifting weights, even if you're not doing push ups or sit ups or walking around the block, you should really stretch every single day. And this is something I need to get better at. I'm saying this for myself as much as everyone. It is really good for getting all that muscle tension out of your body. And it's the number one thing that helps me with my back and shoulder pain. After I stretch, I feel so much better, especially if I do some stretches in the shower with hot water. Oh, that feels great, man. So, muscle tension is the second. The third one, which is where things start to get interesting, is itchiness. I've noticed I will get spots that get insanely itchy. And whenever I do, it's random. It's usually similar spots. It's like the same location over and over again. But there's no scientific explanation I've been able to find. I've checked out uh, like environmental things, allergies, other medical things, and I can find no specific explanation. And the thing is, it didn't used to happen. It almost never happened until I started this journey of conquering my demons. And now it seems the best way I can explain it is that it seems once I have forced them out of my mind, they take up residence in my body. And then as I transform my body, they become uncomfortable there, which makes me uncomfortable. The best way I can describe it is like changing the habitat so it becomes unsuitable for the creatures living there. And I'm trying to change the habitat of my body so that demons can't live here anymore. And that's probably pretty insane sounding, but it's where I'm at right now. As I do this, I have noticed specifically the areas which I'm struggling with the most, which seems to be the ones least willing to leave. I will have spots of my body that get insanely itchy spontaneously and acutely, uh, which are I'm using the specific medical terms here. I have had massive spontaneous hives show up on my arm that I could determine absolutely no scientific explanation for. The only thing that made any sense at all was that I was pushing this muscle stress out of my body, and it got stuck there. And then it created this hive. And it got really bad for a while with my legs, to a point where they were literally covered in spontaneously forming open sores. And I checked all kinds of different solutions, bed bugs, whatever, uh, allergies, chemical exposure, anything I could think of. And I couldn't trace down any evidence that any of these things had happened. The only evidence I had at all for this kind of weird body transformation was that um, I was fighting these demons, and these sores happened to show up in exactly the same location where the demons were. And I'm still trying to process and come to terms with all this, by the way. I know lots of people are probably going to say all kinds of negative shit about this, but I'm partially throwing it out there just because I want to hear what other people think, other people's experiences. And it was really frustrating and scary at first. I didn't want to talk to anyone about these experiences because I just assumed everyone would think I was crazy, you know? And the few people I did reach out to, yeah, they basically said that. But as much as I am a hardcore scientist in that I seek to disprove a hypothesis. Most scientists these days aren't true scientists, in my opinion, because no matter what degrees or experience they have, they set up their experiments with the intention to prove something, because proving something, especially for a corporation or a university, gets them paid, it gets them uh, notoriety in the scientific journals. Disproving something doesn't get you recognition. In fact, disproving something, if it gets you anything, usually gets you infamy. And people don't want to be told they're wrong. They just want their false sense of reality to be confirmed. So many scientists these days, especially political scientists and social scientists, they set up their experiments so that they can prove something without ever really testing the variables that would disprove it. I've read through so many methodologies and been like, I can't trust this survey or this experiment or this observation at all, simply because the methodology is totally fucked. So I've spent everything I can to try and disprove this shit, but I can't come up with any other viable working theories at this point. We're talking years of energy and observation here now. And it's relevant again because I thought there were potential environmental issues I hadn't entirely controlled for that could have been the trigger. For example, the place I used to live in wasn't very healthy at all. There was black mold everywhere, lots of dust, God knows what else. And it was all beyond my ability to control because of the homeowners and the other people I lived with. It was either spend my entire life cleaning up and never make any money or make anything of myself, or focus on trying to get some way the fuck out of there. So it became the second one because I'm not the type to sit and languish and go, oh, poor me. I just survive and work my way through everything, you know? So I thought maybe it had to do with some of those environmental factors that I couldn't control, even though it didn't really make sense. Perhaps it was some kind of acute allergic reaction, but like black mold or dust specifically giving me hives and open itchy sores on my legs, it's and nowhere else, it's just really strange. It doesn't make a lot of medical sense. And now I'm in a new place and I continue to grow exponentially, both in my mind and my body, and I hope my soul too, although admittedly I need to do a lot more work on my body. It's been a while since I have worked out consistently. The only reason I'm not like actually losing and I'm just kind of holding steady. I lost so much over the past year and a half when I was really going through it. But I'm I'm back to what I've had people call skinny strong, whereas I don't really look ripped, but just because I've done manual labor for my entire life, I can still just like pick up a 5 gallon bucket and throw it across the room, you know? But as my mind is getting better and I'm dealing with other hurdles that have existed in my life with getting set up here, I'm starting to work out again with just the very least bare minimum being stretches, push ups, sit ups. Really need to do the sit ups. I've got a little food baby going that I'm not fond of. I will not be showing you that in this video. Uh, what I do want to show you though is that the stores are back, but they're in a different spot now. Now I know it's called In My Legs, but that's because it's where I originally encountered them. I generally have very healthy skin. It's not a thing that this like never happens to me. And for the past week, my whole body, I don't know if you can see any underneath there, but it's like kind of red and discolored. My whole body has been upper body, like shoulders, arms, neck has been incredibly itchy. And then these sores started showing up. And I was like, oh God, not again. Because, one of the things about good science is it's repeatable. And this is the point where I'm starting to have to really consider the possibility that it might be a viable hypothesis, simply because it's the exact same thing happening over again. Where as I reached like a new level in the quietness of my mind, uh, there was an increase of stress and disruption in my body, which followed the exact same pattern as the previous time these started showing up. And I'm over the hill now at this point. Last time, it felt like it was going to last forever. I I thought I had some kind of crazy rash or something, but I was not able to find any explanation that matched that. Like, I did everything I could. Washed my sheets constantly, make sure I shower, use soap. I tried using less soap because sometimes that will cause you to break out in rashes. There's certain kinds of soaps, whether you're allergic or they're just not very sensitive to your skin. And the only solution was to keep on working on my inner self and give it time. And this time through, I just accepted that and it went way faster. If you've been watching my streams the past couple days, I'm sure you noticed that there were parts where I was ridiculously, uncontrollably itchy. We're pretty much over that at this point, where it's just lingering minor itchiness. Also, none of them are really bleeding anymore. That one on my arm right there was bleeding pretty good yesterday. And I just want to share this both in case anyone else is going through this kind of stuff and like doctors can't find solutions, or you're having similar thoughts as to what the fuck is going on. There's no scientific explanation for this. I'm starting to see myself as a spiritual scientist, where I've always believed that science is the understanding of God's creation, right? Uh, how do atoms interact to form electromagnetic fields which create us? How do Higgs bosons interact with us to create gravity? All this stuff. It's just like taking the pencil apart, the mechanical pencil apart to see how it works type stuff. And now I'm starting to do that with my own soul. Maybe not my soul itself. I don't know if I've quite reached that level, but at least my mind and the connection my mind has to my body and my soul. And the results have been extraordinary. I don't know how else to put it. I I feel so much more centered and focused than I have ever been in my life, and so much more fearless. That's why I'm willing to just go out and say this. And I don't care, one, if anyone watches it at all, or two, if everyone watches it and the entire internet ridicules me. The fact of the matter is, I'm making tremendous strides, and I want to share this with people, both so if anyone's going through this type of stuff, you're not alone. And also because I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you guys think, because I've encountered this interesting phenomenon where I can't get any good answers about this stuff, right? There's other things going on that I don't really want to talk about yet. I've mentioned them low key before, but we can talk about those later. If I ever talk about those at all, I might keep those as an ace up the sleeve type thing. But I go and I search on the internet where we have this massive wealth of knowledge. And there's like three problems with the internet now. One is that dead internet theory. If you don't know what that is, just Google it. But the short and long term is there's more bot traffic on the internet now than there is actual human traffic. And bots don't create anything, they just regurgitate things. And also, even the best AI hallucinates and shares misinformation and makes false assumptions all the time. So we just have all this actually false information being presented to us as fact. And there's no way to really moderate that except to approach everything with a healthy level of skepticism. Two is polarization. Everywhere I look for answers on this type of thing, it's always the absolute extremes. There's never any kind of potential middle ground where it's always like, oh yeah, it's absolutely 100% mythical demons. You have this explicit kind of demon come to my fucking uh, seance and pay me $3,000 and we'll exercise it for you. Or the exact opposite, where, oh, it's just a skin issue. You need to buy this health product or this topical cream. Come to my clinic and pay me $3,000 and we'll solve it for you, right? Where I think the answer is maybe somewhere in between. I think these negative energies either manifest or are manifested by these physical alterations. I think we have a lot more control and ability to manipulate reality than most of us realize. And because of that, we either manipulate reality ourselves or we let reality manipulate us. And oftentimes, even when we don't even though when we don't let reality manipulate us, many people don't realize the type of power they have to manipulate their own reality. So they create these inherently negative realities for themselves. Like the people that wake up saying today is going to be a terrible day, they create a terrible day for themselves without even realizing it. They're always right. They're never wrong because that's what they want. Maybe it's not what they feel like they want, but if they didn't want that reality, they wouldn't create it for themselves. Remember, actions speak louder than words. And the fourth thing, I was talking about these negative energies specifically. I feel that there is a certain level of a flow of energy involved with these. And electromagnetic fields, who knows? If you want to know how this type of stuff is even possible, just Google frog magnets. There are literal magnets that can be used to pick up frogs using the electromagnetic fields in their bodies. We all have electromagnetic fields we generate. It's what keeps our heart beating. It's the Earth is one giant electromagnetic field, or has one giant electromagnetic field that prevents us from getting spit roasted by the sun. So these electromagnetic fields are extremely powerful, and the larger and more complex a being or an entity, the more powerful electromagnetic field it projects. For example, the Earth has a more powerful electromagnetic field than a frog, which has a more powerful electromagnetic field than a fly. And if a frog's electromagnetic field is powerful enough that you can lift it up with a magnet, imagine what the electromagnetic field of a human can do, which is infinitely more complex than a frog. One of the interesting things I've discovered, primarily with my cat, is that I first noticed after determining it myself when it was just stress, before I started referring to all this stuff as demons. I After I learned to track the stress collection, the negative muscle balls in my body, for whatever you want to call it. It's weird because it feels like you're pushing something around underneath your skin, almost like a snake or a beetle that's moving around underneath your skin. It's a little disturbing at first once you realize you can actually move them and force them out of your body. After I got really good at it, I started to notice them in the cat too. And I learned to be able to help relieve him of his stress just by it's like petting 2.0, where I can feel a clump of muscle stress in his throat, or like by his shoulder blades, along his tail or his spine. And it's gotten to the point where he uh, feels it too. And I know that because he will literally use his hands to push the muscles, use my hands. Sorry, he doesn't have hands, he's got paws. He will literally use my hands to push the muscle stress out of his body. Like if I'm just sitting there absent-mindedly petting him sometimes, he will like stand up and arch his back and push it into my hand to help me to like be like, hey, massage this shit out of my back, please. Uh, and one thing that I've noticed more on him first than myself, but now I've been able to detect it on myself, is some of them are really hot. Like, actually, I can feel heat coming off the area. And it's always the most potent ones. Generally, when I experience that in my own body, feel the actual heat, it's one that's causing me significant amounts of pain to the point where it's triggering a migraine or something like that. And I didn't notice it at first, except for I'd be petting the cat and I'd be like, why do you have this hot spot here? It feels like this one part of your body has been baking out in the sun, but the rest of you is like normal temperature. So that's the fourth thing I've noticed as a little weird piece of evidence that, for lack of a better term, I'm calling demons. And whether that's demons as in spoken of the Bible or in ancient Japanese manuscripts, or whether it's demons uh, like in modern music where they talk about fighting their demons. I'm trying to think of the song. The band that does Radioactive. Imagine Dragons. Demons like in the Imagine Dragons song. Or I'm sure like a lot of the pop artists have songs about demons too. You could argue. I mean, she doesn't say it, but there's a lot of things Poppy talks about in regards to demons. Just Poppy's such an interesting character. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I've got a lot of work to do, primarily on myself, but also on the house. I'm going to go and do those push ups, those stretches. Remember, the most important thing I found is stretching. Just move. Being sedentary is how those negative thoughts that your body just atrophies when you're not moving. And the same is true of your mind, right? Work out your mind by reading, by engaging in open conversation. That's the third thing that I forgot to mention that I have trouble when trying to have these discussions, which is on top of the polarization and the first one, which I don't remember now. You can go back in the video and see it. There is an additional layer of a lack of suspension of disbelief, which is necessary for any form of growth. You need to be able to suspend disbelief to grow mentally and emotionally, and a lack of willingness to listen to someone that has a disagreement with you and hear their side. And I mean truly listen. I've gone over this multiple times, but we'll do it one last time. Well, not one last time, but once for this video. There are 4 levels of receiving information, we're going to call it. And to make it simple, we're going to use receiving auditory information. There is hearing, which is the physical act. Like there's not so much extra noise around you. You aren't wearing earmuffs. Your ears actually work. All those things. Almost all of us do this natively unless we have some kind of specific disability or there's an environment which makes hearing difficult or impossible. So this just happens to you whether you want it to or not. You are going to hear that person say that absolutely reprehensible thing, whether you wanted to or not. And the best you can do is try and physically prevent it somehow if you don't want to hear that. The second thing is listening. And unfortunately, most people in the world don't even make it to the second level of receiving information anymore, which is absolutely insane. And I believe this also ties into the literacy problem, where most people in the world don't even read at a high school level. And we're talking high school freshman level. The average literacy level in the entire world and also the United States is between seventh and eighth grade. That's insane. How is it, especially when you have to go to school through 12th grade, at least here in the US, that you don't even read at like a freshman level in high school when you spent 4 years in high school? What the fuck were you doing that whole time? So I see similar things, which with receiving information auditorily, where in the same way that people just can't read today, people can't even listen today. They don't actually listen to what the other person's might say is saying. They might hear it, but instead of listening to what they're saying, they're already talking in their brain. And you can't listen to someone while you're talking. That information pathway is very limited. So you might be able to hear and listen a little bit, but you aren't really absorbing it unless you stop and listen for a moment. Now, most people don't even do this, which is insane. The third level, which is necessary for true growth, is to understand. And understanding often evades us, even when we listen intently and truthfully. Sometimes understanding takes time. Sometimes understanding is simply beyond us, right? And that, I will never hold it against someone for not understanding. And if I've ever seemed like I've done that in the past to you or anyone, if anyone I know is watching this, I definitely apologize. I assure you that I wasn't really mad at you. I was just mad at the situation and frustrated by the lack of progress. So, understanding requires going outside of oneself and processing that information both logically and emotionally, which is where I feel like most people fail to do that. Humans are naturally emotional creatures, but we also have a logical side of our brain that is designed to process things. And it's really interesting when there's all kinds of insane studies out there where people have blocked one eye off or the other, or taken people with brain damage or lobotomies and done really weird, intriguing studies. You should read about them if you have the time. Well, you should definitely read about them, and you should make the time, because you make time for the things that are important for you. And sometimes you need to prioritize your time so that even things are important to you need to be pushed down the road. But we all make time for the things that are important for us in the end. And if you're interested in growing, you should learn these studies and read about how the human mind works. But we have this part of the human mind whose sole job is to rationalize and explain things. And it's actually not great at doing that job, but it's a survival instinct, right? And so what it needs to do is it needs to come up with a solution now. And it just does that instantly. The moment it sees something, within mere seconds or maybe even microseconds of being revealed this information, it processes a solution and it gives you that solution. I think the problem with many people these days is that is the logical side of the brain. And the problem isn't that does that and that the logic is false. The problem is their emotions then get in the way, where they get attached to this false narrative, this false perception, because it's what they believe or what they did believe. And they feel like somehow if they change their mind, that reflects on them negatively. But in many situations, changing your mind only reflects positively. It's growth, usually. And there are some things that I will probably never change my mind about because I've tested them over and over again and they've confirmed themselves to be true. But I'm open to the fact that someday they might not. Someday I might come across new evidence or test something in a way I never have before, see it from a different perspective, and be like, oh, maybe I was wrong all these years. And that's kind of the thing with demons right now. I've always thought that type of like lore and mythology and stuff was cool, but I never thought demons were real. Now I'm pretty sure of the opposite. So, the fourth level, we're not going to really talk too much about that because it's something where if you know, you know. And that's literally what the fourth level is. It's comprehension, where really the only way you can have that level of information. What word am I looking for? There's a very specific word I'm looking for, but I can't find it right now. Uh, I'll say information cohesion. That's close enough. To have that level of information cohesion where you truly comprehend something, the only way to do that is to have experienced it or experienced something remarkably similar, right? So the only people that can comprehend what I'm talking about right now are the people that have already gone through something like this. The only person who can comprehend what it's like to actually be sexually assaulted is someone who's been sexually assaulted. The only person who can comprehend what it's like to be shot is someone who has been shot, right? So these are things that you can never achieve. And often you probably don't want to achieve them unless it's some grand achievement. Like if you want to comprehend what it's like to climb Mount Everest, then go climb Mount Everest. You can understand what it's like to climb Mount Everest by reading stories of people that climbed Mount Everest, by watching videos or documentaries of people who have climbed Mount Everest. You can even probably climb Mount Everest in VR, but you won't ever really comprehend it unless you actually go do it yourself. So I don't remember why I felt the need to include that at the end of this video, but all that being said, I just hope some of you take the time to try and understand. And if you have any questions or comments, please drop them. And if you like having these type of conversations, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you don't like having these conversations, dislike and subscribe anyways so that you can be mad at me in the comments and increase my metrics. Cheers.